what was coming. Next slide, please. So this meeting will be recorded. You should have just gotten the notification there. The way the webinar is set up, it has all attendees muted. If you did want to ask a question vocally, there's the option to use the raise hand feature. So on the bottom toolbar, there's an option to raise hand. And that way we can unmute you throughout the course of the presentation or at the end during the Q&A portion. Or if you wanted to ask a question throughout the presentation, you could also use the Slido feature. So that's found on the bottom right-hand corner. If you click those three dots, it should have the option for Slido, and that's where you can submit questions and we can get you answers throughout the course of the presentation as well. Whichever works for us, if you want to ask questions throughout the presentation or if you want to hang out at the end and get a little bit more information from the panelists at that point, you're welcome to. But there'll be plenty of time left at the end for that. Great. Next slide, please. So with this, I'll pass it off to my colleague, Bill.
Hey everybody, good to see you again, and thank you for taking the time to attend our session today. I'm Phil Dubuque, Senior Project Manager at NYSERDA and the lead of this contractor network. And we have obviously some big and exciting changes coming up to the network that I'd like to talk about in the updates here. And the first one is the network is going to be getting a name change in order in the process to simplify naming conventions here at NYSERDA. So same network, new name. We're going to be going from the multifamily residential energy pathways MREP contractor network to just NYSERDA's multifamily contractor network. I know, very exciting and much easier to talk to and talk through with owners and applicants as well. So that's the first change that we have coming up. Very exciting. This will be coming up in a new RFQL update starting later in Q1, early Q2. All right, let's hop to the next slide. I'm seeing a bit of a lag here. There we go. All right, so on the next slide, we did send out annual surveys earlier this month. I wanted to give a reminder that the annual survey is still live and closes January 31st. Please take the time to fill out this survey as it is part of the requirements for the network and helps provide feedback so we can make sure these sessions as well as the network is providing as much value to you as providers in the network. The topics include funding opportunities and feedback on those funding opportunities, market feedback on how things are going with previous programs and opportunities, as well as program design and implementation feedback. So please take the time to fill that survey out before the 31st. Next slide. Next, we are going to be adding 2 new categories to the multifamily contractor network. These are exciting categories with the closing of other networks that we've used in the past for the multifamily team to send individual mini bids and issue technical work orders with multifamily providers. We want to create a new pool that is just for multifamily providers in these efforts. So these pools will be called our umbrella agreement pool and our resiliency pool. There'll be pools of qualified contractors for NYSERDA to submit those mini bids to, as well as provide assistance to NYSERDA for projects in the categories shown here. So energy and decarbonization analysis, design work, professional services, as well as climate resiliency work, which you'll hear later on a bit more from by Shay. What action is going to be needed with these networks? As these are new categories, you will need to apply for these categories. There's a different scoring criteria and process for these categories. So please make sure you will see an email come out when we release the categories on the RFQL update. Apply to those categories if you're interested in receiving mini bids and task work orders for unique NYSERDA work. Again, this will be in late Q1, early Q2. Next slide, please. We are also going to be working on releasing a new platform for our participants in the MREP network. This is a networking platform that provides a central space for informal communications and more consistent communications and collaborations between NYSERDA, our energy assessors, our installers, and our other partners. We're looking to set this up to have regional community spaces, have areas where we can quickly share valuable updates and insights on NYSERDA programs rather than the longer process of having to send it through the email blasts. allowing us to get information to you quicker and allowing you also to have peer-to-peer knowledge sharing and communication, a platform where you can talk not just to us, but to other energy assessors, installers, and partners and work on partnerships and communication with them and cooperation. Uh, Upon release of the network, we'll again send out an email telling you the network is ready to go and how to apply for access. And we will also host a training on how to utilize the platform. We're really excited about this. It gives us a much better way of communication and more consistent, easy communication. We're looking to target this in late Q1. Next slide. All right, with that, I will pass it over to the great Pam Miller.
Oh gosh, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Pam Miller, Senior Project Manager here with NYSERDA, and I will also be the lead for the exciting new affordable multifamily program, Upstate AMP Up program, which will launch in March. So just wanted to get started, kind of set the stage a little bit, kind of give you a little insight into our journey on how we've arrived with the AMP Up program today, and share some exciting updates that many of you may not have seen already. So as we were preparing for the new EEBE multifamily portfolio, obviously that kind of transitioned over in 2026, wanted to just kind of set the stage to give you a good understanding. So prior to when we were under our CEF funding cycle, we had essentially a statewide offering that was managed by our utilities, the Affordable Multifamily Energy Efficiency Portfolio, I believe, AMEP. Just to let you know that upstate, that portion of that program for upstate participants closed on October 31st, 2025. Moving into 2026, that program still remains and still is active for folks located in the Con Ed territory. Anyone located north of the Con Edison territory will fall under the AMP Up program, which is being administered by NYSERDA. And again, we're looking to launch that program here in March of 2026, and that will run through the funding cycle, which goes through 2030. Just a disclaimer for all of the slides shown here and moving forward under this category, everything is still subject to change. So we are going to be looking at incentive levels and potential stacking opportunities. We are still pending final approval, so there is still a chance that some of the information may change. But we did want to, we're getting close, and we wanted to give you all a good look on what to expect coming up. So take this all in. I hope that it satisfies your craving for more knowledge on how this is going to work. But keep in mind that, you know, some of the aspects and components of the program may still be tweaked slightly before we finalize and launch. Next slide, please. So in preparation for developing this program, we held several stakeholder feedback sessions. The main takeaways from those feedback sessions were that everyone is craving streamlined customer journeys, looking to provide flexibility to meet owners kind of where they're at. So we have folks that are, you know, mid-cycle. We have folks that are maybe in the midst of, you know, a plan that they had, putting energy efficiency upgrades into their building. So kind of developing a program that can kind of serve all of those different types of customers. There was a need for maintaining tenant affordability, and then obviously a statewide goal of taking an efficiency first approach strategy moving forward into this field. So we've taken all of that information and used that to start to develop the core of what AMP Up is structured into as we see it today. Next slide, please. So the idea behind AMP Up is really that we are launching this this program in March. It really is intended to make it easier than ever for multifamily building owners and property managers to improve energy performance and prepare their buildings for a low carbon future. We are trying to help navigate retrofit projects that often can be very complex and overwhelming. So really, we've done all that we can to try to remove barriers and to make comprehensive building upgrades achievable and rewarding for owners and managers across upstate New York. AmpUp was designed to feature a streamlined customer journey, as we've talked about, and we've also built in an embedded technical assistance component and an available concierge-style support service. From the first conversation when we started developing this program right up until now, we are relying on our participants to really see the benefits to participating in this program, and hopefully the streamlined customer journey and the added services to the program offerings kind of make that a little bit more attractive. And we are relying on all of you to really get the word out on the street and to take hold of this program and really help us build up the pipeline and get the word out to all of these customers in what we're calling upstate, and get them in and help them make their buildings more energy efficient. So the structure of the program is that we have incentives available for 4 kind of base measure categories. So we have a prescriptive category, weatherization, and electrification, in a deep retrofit category. And as the graphic shown on this slide indicates, the incentives will start lower, and as the work scopes become a little bit more comprehensive and a little bit more complex, the incentives will increase accordingly with that. We also do have a really exciting add to this program. It's the first program that NYSERDA is offering, where we are going to be offering resiliency enhancements as well. And those enhancements are tied to some of the core measures available within the weatherization, electrification, and deep retrofit categories. The intent really is that our incentives will be stackable, allowing projects to kind of develop the scope of work that they need at the time. And, those scopes could be small or big. AmpUp is here to kind of support you throughout the process. Next slide, please. So we want to talk a little bit about eligible projects. So again, we've mentioned upstate New York. There's always a debatable topic depending on where you are from. But in terms of this program, the definition of upstate is any property north of the Con Edison service territory. Projects must pay into the system's benefit charge on either their electric or gas utility bill. So it doesn't have to be both. It could be either or. Projects must consist of 1 or more multifamily buildings. And we are allowing mixed use buildings, but 50% of the gross heated square footage has to be residential or residentially associated. Projects have to have a total of 5 or more units, and any project that has greater than 150 units just needs to receive prior authorization before submitting their common application. And that is just to allow us to manage and maintain our budgets and to make sure that we have available funds for those projects moving forward. In terms of LMI criteria, for those of you who may have seen this presentation previously, this is a slight change. So we are defaulting to our typical LMI criteria. All buildings must meet 25% of, 25% of the project must be at or below 80% AMI or SMI, whichever is higher. So that is a slight change from previous presentations, just a quick note to that. And then lastly, all of the projects that are participating in AmpUp must use a NYSERDA multifamily contractor, which we are coining in the program as our primary service, or they are participating in a concierge service, which they're assigned a contractor by NYSERDA. Next slide, please. Again, this is just a little bit of background on kind of some of the research that we did and investigation that we did before kind of developing the structure of the program moving forward. But when we took a look at the upstate building stock, what we're finding is that greater than 50% of all upstate LMI multifamily building stock has less than 20 units in a building. What we're finding is that small multifamily buildings are often 3 stories or less. And then those typically need more technical support. And because they're so small, they offer little economies of scale, and they oftentimes can be difficult to reach. And we have found historically that contractors tend to focus more on those larger properties just because of those specific reasons. So in order to try to address that, knowing that that's more than 50% of kind of our upstate building stock, we did develop a small building pathway, if you will. So if you want to jump on to the next slide. So the solution that we've developed to handle this market is basically offering a small building or a low-rise pathway. So those buildings would be defined as projects with 5 to 20 units and are 1 to 3 stories. Plan to better target these projects by supporting the multifamily properties and utilizing local actors like our hubs and our CBOs to help with initial engagement to try to attract them to the program. I know, again, last time on the last slide, what we talked about is sometimes they're hard to reach. So we're hoping we can use some of our boots on the ground that we have out there, kind of working on the smaller buildings now. We're expanding their scope into some of these more multifamily type structures. And so we're hoping that that helps to feed into the pipeline. We also developed the concierge service, which is an offering for all projects going through the program, but the concierge service was developed with our small buildings or our low-rise pathway in mind. It provides enhanced support services, and we'll talk a little bit more about, the services that we'll have in our primary service versus our concierge service on the next slide. But in addition to that, we've also worked with contractor PSD to develop a software called Clarity Compass. Our Clarity Compass tool is a tool that can be used as an alternative for required building modeling. We did have a training on this tool back in early December. A recording of that training is available on the provider portal now. So if you missed that, I would encourage you to go back and watch that session. It will give you a little bit of more information about the tool that they are offering. And really the intent of offering that tool is to make it a little bit easier and a little bit quicker for contractors that are working on these smaller buildings. So it's less time that you need to invest, which obviously reduces the overall cost to the project to participate in the program. And then lastly, the overall incentive cap for these smaller buildings or low-rise pathway has been increased. So our incentive cap for our larger buildings is 70% of the scope of work. For these smaller buildings, it's going to be bumped up to 85% of the total scope of work. And then we did structure the incentives so that we are paying more of those incentives in the first milestone to help support and fund the development and getting into the construction phase for those smaller buildings, because we know that capital is oftentimes one of the hardest things to deal with on these smaller buildings. And then lastly, just to the right, it's just a quick graphic to kind of give you an idea of what our building stock looks like across the state. So again, from this graphic, the purple box here just indicates those 5 to 19 units, 5 to 20 units, kind of the bulk of the pipeline. And then you can trace those I don't know what you call them, arms back to the host to see, a lot of those projects are really located in the Mid-Hudson region and in Western New York, with a equally decent amount in the Finger Lakes. But this just kind of gives you a graphic of where those projects kind of lie and gives you an idea of, kind of those territories that we need to cover. Next slide. So this is just a comparison between the two different pathways through the program. So as we mentioned, we have a concierge pathway and we have the primary service pathway. Primary service pathway is essentially what you'll be offering through the multifamily contractor network. This is just a quick listing of the different types of scopes of work that are required by AMP-UP. Concierge service has the ability to provide and to fund some of the additional services, whereas a primary service, I think you all, sorry, should be able to offer these services. So they are optional to your customers as well, but not something that we're requiring as part of participation in the program. And then we just wanted to kind of give you a preemptive into this, but we have flood-proofing design assistance that we'll talk about a little bit later. That also may be available for any projects that are able to participate in resilience enhancements. Next slide, please. I am not going to go through this slide. It's a little bit crazy, but just wanted to give you a really quick overview of what the customer journey feels like. So we are moving from customer engagement, which can come from any one of these kind of 5+ categories. There'll be those customers will be connected either directly or indirectly through either the concierge service or primary service, in which the participating contractor will submit an AMP-UP application through our common application, which Colin's going to give us a preview of what that looks like in a few moments. Once we have that application in, the program, the AMP-UP program, your project manager will schedule a scoping session call. And that's just an initial call to kind of talk about what the program is, what the building has anticipated, what their scope of work might look like. We'll talk about resilience enhancements opportunities. And then from there, we kind of move into our incentive offer letter. So once we get the incentive offer letter, that's really your go ahead to move forward with development of the process. And so you move into your stage 1, which is your scope development. Go through the process, the approval process there, move into construction, and then into final stages. We do have a mid-construction inspection option. This is optional, so if you choose to have the mid-construction inspection stage, these are kind of the qualifying parameters around that, but there would be an incentive available there. If you decide to skip over that mid-construction inspection phase, the incentives that would have been allocated in stage 3 would just be allocated all at stage 4. More to come on this. We'll be having a contractor training coming up in February, time and date to be announced very soon, and where we'll talk about these stages and what's expected in more detail. Next slide, please. And then this is just a quick look at what the eligible measures are. They are broken down by our categories. So by our incentive categories, we have the prescriptive, we have weatherization, we have electrification, and we have deep retrofit. In addition to that, we've talked a little bit about these resilience enhancements. In a couple of slides, Shay is going to talk a little bit more about that, but just to give you a quick insight into that, essentially these are incentives that can be stacked on top of the base or the core measure categories to provide assistance for these 6 specific measures. So we're talking about like flood proofing, elevation of equipment within the building, some additional incentives for those who may fall into a vulnerable population category, and then some additional incentives for hurricane resistant windows. Again, more to come on that in just a few slides. Next slide, please. Okay, here is probably the slide you all would like to, are probably most interested in looking at, because up until now, we have not really released what our intent has been on for the incentives. So again, just a reminder, this is what we are going with at this point, but it is still subject to final approval, but we wanted to get this out so that it was available to you all now in planning for bringing those applications come the launch of the program in March. So we will have the prescriptive, weatherization, electrification, and deep retrofit categories. These incentives are based on a per unit basis. So we are providing up to $1,750 for prescriptive measures. Again, on top of that, we are talking about having that 70 to 85% cost cap. So, if you have a 10-unit building, we're talking about $17,500, I think, if my math worked out correctly, available for prescriptive measures as a building as a whole. So if you're only coming in and doing low flow showers and aerators, likely your cap is going to be the 85% or the 70% and not the 1750. So we have kind of those two cost cap categories kind of playing into this. And then we are working with another team within NYSERDA where we might be able to provide a separate incentive for refrigerators. This is still being worked out right now. I think the preliminary discussions where we'd be providing up to $600 towards purchase of a refrigerator per unit. And so we'll have more details about how that's going to integrate and how that's going to work at a later time. For technical assistance, so technical assistance is the building audit and the preparation of our EAST tool, which is our main tool that we'll be using for the program. We are looking to provide up to 100% cost share. That's going to require some, obviously some proposals to us. We'll have to review to make sure that those scopes of work and those costs seem reasonable, and those will be paid out during separate stages as well. So let's talk about those stages. Stage 1, scope development. Again, putting more money up front, so 50% up front for those smaller buildings, 50% of whatever your total end use incentive would be. In addition to that, we're looking to pay 75% of your technical assistance fees for that. And then moving on to stage 2, which really is just there to help us pay out the final 25% of the technical assistance. That will be when the construction begins. And so there'll be a couple of minor deliverables due there just so that we can get that final 25% incentive payment out to the contractors. Then stage 3 is optional. That's the partial construction. At that point, that is when we would be interested in paying out that refrigerator. So we're looking to have those refrigerators installed sooner rather than later. So we're hoping that we can integrate that into the process as well. And then obviously at stage 4, the remaining incentives would be paid out at that point upon approval and inspection. With that, there is a whole nother bottom part of this incentive schedule, but it really speaks to the resiliency piece. And so rather than trying to confuse you all with the resiliency piece, I'm going to leave that for Shay. So we have one more slide to look at just before we jump into the resiliency component. So if we want to advance the slide, I just wanted to give you kind of an example of what we're looking at minus the resiliency enhancements, which we'll talk about next. So we talked about phased scopes and measure stacking. We are allowing projects to enter AMP up multiple times. Every application that comes in obviously needs to be for a new scope of work. We're not going to pay, if you come in and do low flow fixtures in 2026 and then you do them again in 2030, that's not going to work. We're only paying for the measures once. But let's say in 2026, you have a building that comes in that is interested in doing some prescriptive measures. So they'll get up to that $1,750 per dwelling unit. Again, keeping in mind, we still have that 70 and 85% cost cap there. Let's say in 2027, the plan now is to move into some weatherization measures. So they're interested in roof insulation, maybe some air sealing and wall insulation. They'd be eligible for up to $2,500 per dwelling unit. And then fast forward to 2030, their envelope is in really great condition. They are ready to move forward with building electrification, and they're interested in coming in and doing some heat pumps for heating and cooling and for domestic water heating. They'd be eligible for up to $5,750 per dwelling unit at that point. So all in all, when you look at their participation in the program in this funding cycle, their total award could be for this particular scope up to $10,000 per dwelling unit, which I think will make substantial impact to some of the construction costs that are needed to get our buildings upgraded and electrified. So with that said, I am sure there are lots of people wondering about what this resiliency enhancement might be. So I wanted to take a moment and pass this over to my colleague Shay, who is going to tell us a little bit more about this. And we look forward to hearing your feedback. Thank you.
Yes, hello. My name is Shay Kerwin, and I'm a project manager on the multifamily residential team at NYSERDA, and I'll be talking about the resiliency pilot that's been integrated into AMP Up. I know you're all on the edge of your seats, but I believe we're going to take like a 3-minute break, Michelle, if that's correct, before we jump into these.
That's okay, Shay. You can go ahead and go with resilience and then we can do the break after.
Okay, great. Yeah, so as climate hazards are becoming more frequent, we wanted to help protect the investments that y'all are installing with your energy efficiency and building electrification upgrades. So the following resiliency enhancements that I'll touch on were incorporated into AMP Up to combat the effects of 3 climate hazard areas, which are extreme heat, extreme wind, and increased flooding. As Pam said, to be eligible for these enhancements, the project must be located in a climate hazard exposure area, which the screening is done for those areas upon the application submittal, and the project needs to be pursuing the base program measures associated with each enhancement. So you have to be installing a heat pump to get the heat pump resiliency enhancement. The For all projects that are pursuing the resilience enhancements, the resilience enhancement addendum needs to be signed. So you'll see that like additional documentation that you'll see, and that is for all of the resilience enhancement projects. And if you're installing the certain like the extreme heat enhancement, then you'll have to have another documentation. And if you're doing the floodproofing of equipment, there are other documents that will be needed there. The floodproofing design assistance may be available. It needs to be completed by a PE or an RA. More to come on that also in the RFQL update for the MREP network, or the multifamily contractors network. So we stay tuned for that one. If we can go to the next slide, we'll get into the meat of it all with the incentive payment schedule. So as you can see, we have 4 different types of resilience enhancements. The equipment floodproofing, so that'll be for your heating and cooling, the domestic hot water, and then the electrical panel floodproofing, that'll be the relocations. You'll need the schematics of electrical panel floodproofing if it's below the design flood elevation. For those, the incentive cap does not go towards the incentive cap for the overall AMP Up project, because we are covering 100% of the cost for the floodproofing for the equipment, and then 85% or 70%, which are the same cost shares that the AMP Up program is doing, depending on your total unit count. Next is the extreme heat. All of the projects will be eligible for this one because of the extreme heat mapping that we've done. And there's a little bit of that language of like the additional 15% or 30% for the unit counts. That really just means the gap funding covered from the cost share that AMP Up is providing to get you to 100% cost shared for the additional extreme heating and cooling measure. And then the resilient enhancement for extreme wind is the cost difference between a regular window that you would be installing to a hurricane resistant window. And so 50% of that delta will be covered by the resiliency enhancement. A note on this one is your insurance should be able to cover also like the cost going forward. It is a New York State law for insurances that if you have hurricane resistant windows, you'll be able to get a discount on your insurance. So like that will cover, additional savings. We are following the same scope and timeline for stages as AMP Up is, really just trying to put in the resiliency enhancements where AMP Up is already having all of its base programs. So for stage 1, we're having the floodproofing can do 50% depending on your unit count, or 25% of the total incentive. The optional stage 3, partial construction, and then at stage 4, paying out the remaining for the floodproofing, or if you're doing extreme heat or extreme wind resilience enhancements, then paying all of that out at the end of construction. And I will stay on for the rest of this webinar to answer any questions that you probably have, or we have a resiliency team that can answer any questions that you have as well. I think that's all for me.
Thanks, Shay. And so we're going to take a 2-minute break very quickly. So just hop right back at 10:42. Thank you. Great. And with that, we are back. I'm going to pass it back to Phil to walk us through some updates about the common application.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Michelle. Welcome back, everybody. All right, if we could go to the next slide. So just want to introduce to you the common application, starting with what is the common application. It's a single application through Salesforce, which will be broadly used for multifamily implementation programs where applicable. We are specifically only starting with the AMPA program in this application at this time. So please only use this application for the AMPA program as of right now. What this is Colin will be going through the process of how to submit applications from the providers for applicants. The contractors will be provisioned a Salesforce profile where they can access the application. Again, this will be provisioned by us when you come into the MREP network. For anybody that's already in the MREP network, we will be setting up that for you once the program application is live. Within this application, we're just going to go over the general application process. There will be additional Salesforce functionality that will be presented in future training sessions. This will consist of deliverables and invoicing processes within the Salesforce. And with that, I will pass it over to Colin.
Thanks, Phil. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Colin Hickey. I am a training specialist here at NYSERDA from the Operational Excellence Learning and Development team. And let me just quickly share my screen. All right, so you should be able to see my screen now. So today I'm excited to walk you through a demo of how to submit a multifamily common application, as well as give you a glimpse into the multifamily energy portal for the first time. Like mentioned earlier, please use the Slido feature if you have any questions, or if you'd like to ask a verbal question, please raise your hand. I'll be stopping about halfway through the demo to answer any questions, as well as taking some time at the end to answer any questions. So the common application, like Phil said, is used to apply for the multifamily AMP-UP program. And you can access the common application through the multifamily energy portal, which, like I said, we're getting a first look at today. This portal is where you will submit common applications, as well as do other tasks like manage your project once it's been submitted. You'll be able to do other tasks like submit deliverables, invoices, and manage users here. Before we dive into submitting the common application, I just want to take some time just to quickly glance over the multifamily energy portal, starting with the homepage. Looking here, we can see that once you get provisioned into this, you'll be able to access this portal, and you'll see any news or updates right on the front of the main homepage. Clicking this In Progress Applications tab, this is where if you started a common application and for some reason you had to exit the application halfway through, or maybe you accidentally closed out of your browser, you'll be able to come here to resume any application that you haven't finished yet. Off to the right, you'll see a list of your multifamily projects that you'll have quick access to by clicking these respective links. And also, you'll be able to view a full list of your multifamily projects by clicking View All. If at any point you're in the multifamily energy portal and you need to navigate back to the home page, from the top bar, just select Home. Moving down the top bar, if you click Start a New Project, this will take you to start the common application, which we'll be clicking in just a moment. Selecting My Projects brings you back to a full list of your multifamily projects. Here you'll see a table containing your project name, its respective application number, the status of that application, and if applicable, the customer account name. And again, all these project names are clickable, so you'll be able to access them to view the information inside them, which we'll be doing at the end of the demo. And at the top right-hand corner of the table, you'll be able to search this table by using the search function. Like Phil said earlier, we will be covering submitting deliverables, invoicing, and as well as manage users in a future webinar, so please be on the lookout for that. And then across the top bar, we do have a search feature as well as a way to access your account information. So with that, I'm going to jump back to the homepage and we'll start a common application. So I'll click Start a New Application. Here, the page will reload and we'll see I'm able to see that I will submit a common application. So I'll click Begin. The window will reload and some helpful text will display, just letting me know that before I start the application, I'll need two pieces of information, the customer site address, as well as any site utility details. And then there's some helpful text letting us know that the application will automatically be saved. So after we complete each page in the application, our progress will be saved. So if we have to exit, we can return to the application at a later time without losing any progress. So to start the application and to open the application window, I'll click Start Application. After a few moments, we'll see the application window appear. And at the top of that application window, we'll see a series of circles that represent each page in the application. There's a total of 7 pages. Just give that a moment to load. There we go. All right. So starting with page 1 of the application, we see project contacts, which we can see is denoted by this blue circle up at the top. This blue circle shows the current page of the application that we're on. As I said, there are 7 pages to the application that take us all the way to application submittal. These gray circles here represent the future pages of the application, but they're gray because we cannot access them until we complete the current page that we're on. Once we complete the current page we're on, we'll be able to move, in this case, to project sites. And as we move forward in the application, we will be able to navigate backwards by clicking the blue circles that appear once we finish a page. At the top of every page in the Common Application, you'll see this gray box that contains helpful information for completing the page. In this case, we can see that we need to have at least one customer and contractor contact before moving to the next page, and that the contractor contact should be listed here by default. And we can see that in this case, this contractor contact is the primary contact. So quickly, just to walk through how to edit a contact that's added to your application, you'll first click the circle that is next to the contractor role and then select Edit. Here, you'll be able to see all the different fields for the contact information. And if I needed to, I could go through and edit this information, but all this information here is accurate. So for now, I'll just click Save. Now, I do need to add a customer contact to the application. So to do this, I'll select New. Then I'll select Customer from the role dropdown. By default, the primary contact checkbox is already selected. And then I'll go through and I'll add my test information for the purposes of this demo. So I'll add first and last name, email address, phone number, and it's important to note that as you go through and complete the application, you will see these red asterisks next to fields. The red asterisk indicates that it's a required field and you must complete it before moving on to the next page of the application. And throughout the application, you'll also see these gray information icons. If you select that information icon, a helpful text box will appear where you'll be able to get some information about completing that specific field. So for instance, for company name, if there is not a company name, then the building owner's name may be used. We'll continue to go through and add our information, such as address, city, state, and zip code. And I have filled out all the required fields here, made sure everything's accurate, and I'll click Save. When I return back to the project contacts page, we'll see that now the customer contact is listed and that they're both my primary contacts for the customer and contractor roles. For the purposes of this demo, I'll only be adding these 2 contacts. So now I'll click Continue to advance to page 2 of the application, Project Sites. It's important to note for project sites that if your project has multiple buildings in the project, you'll need to add a separate entry for each building. So I have no buildings listed here, so I'll select New. I'll select this checkbox up at the top if the primary facilities address is the same as the customer address. In this case, they'll be different, so I'll add my address, city, state, zip code, county. The year the building was built, the number of dwellings, the building name, and again, we see we have that information icon to give us some helpful text about completing this field. So this lets us know that a mixed-use property includes both residential and non-residential spaces in the same building. In this case, this is not a mixed-use property. We then can go through, add our occupancy rate, gross floor area, total conditioned floor area, and then we could select this checkbox. And selecting that checkbox basically confirms that we are meeting the income verification threshold and that you will submit proper documentation on page 6 of the application, project documents. Down below, we'll be able to select if it's market rate or low to moderate income. And then our next required field asks us if the building is paying into the electric or natural gas system benefit charge. We'll select the type of electric metering. Down below, both heating sources and gas service use, these are both multi-selects. So if the building has multiple heating sources, you can select that here. And then same for gas service use. And once you review the information on the page and made sure it is accurate, you can click Save. Then we can see the project site will be added to our list of project sites. And just like for project contacts, if you need to edit this address, simply just click the circle next to the address and click Edit. But since I know the information is correct, I'll just click Continue. And that will bring us to page 3 of the application, project information. Now, before I continue, let's say for some reason I needed to step away from the application, or maybe I accidentally closed my browser. You can find your in-progress applications right from the home page by selecting Home. Again, going to that in-progress applications tab, and we'll see our list of applications down below. So I will click Resume, and I will go right back to page 3 of the application, project information. And as I said earlier too, you also can navigate backwards in the application by clicking on pages that you've already completed. So maybe I needed to add a new project contact. I can click on the project contacts page, come here, either edit or add a contact, and then return back to page 3, project information. For this page, the project name and number of buildings has already been filled out for us. We are required to provide a summary of the scope of work. And then down below, we also have 2 multi-selects, where first we'll be selecting which type of assistance the project is interested in pursuing, whether it's energy audit or building assessment, other technical services, installation or construction. I'll select installation or construction. And then down below, we'll indicate which other programs the project is interested in pursuing now or in the future. For this one, I'll select On-Site Energy Manager and Appliance Upgrade Program. And then when ready, I can click Continue and proceed to step 4 in the application, project utility information. So before I continue, I'd just like to pause just to see if there are any questions before I move on with the demo.
All right, Colin, I'm not seeing any coming in through the Slido, so I think you can continue.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so for project utility information, project name will already be pre-filled for us. And then since I have only one project site here, I can select the electric and gas utility company from their respective drop-downs. However, if I did have multiple project sites and I needed to add site-specific utility information, or if the building uses other fuel types, what you'll need to do is select the project site from the list by clicking the circle next to the building name. You'll click Edit, and then for that specific site, you can select the electric and gas utility company from their respective dropdowns, and also add other fuel types from the other fuel type dropdown. Also, you'll have the opportunity to provide what the other fuel type supplier is, and when that information's been added correctly, you can click Save. Then you'll be able to see that the electric, gas, utility companies have been added, as well as the other fuel type. So once you've done this for all of your project sites, you can click Continue. This will bring you to page 5 in the application, where you will sign the attestation. Here, please take a moment to read through the text on the page, and that you will agree with that by selecting the checkbox. Once you select that checkbox, there will be 2 ways to sign the attestation. The first of which is to sign it physically. And to do this, you can click here to save and print. You'll select that option. This will automatically prompt a download to your device where you can print out the application, sign it physically, scan that signed application back to your device, and then you'll upload the signed application in page 6 of the application, Project Documents. However, if you'd like to provide an electronic signature for the attestation, you can click here to provide electronic signature. This will open up a new tab in your browser where you'll be able to access a DocuSign. You'll first see a message from NYSERDA that you can read through and then click Continue. You first can either scroll through your electronic version of the application to review the information, or you can simply automatically scroll by clicking Start. You'll automatically scroll to where you're required to provide your signature. You'll click Sign. When you see your signature, you can then click Finish in the top right-hand corner. Then the page will reload, thanking you for signing the application, and you can close this tab and return to the application window. And once we do that, we'll now see that those 2 buttons are gone, and we can see that we have signed the application. Once we've done that, we can click Continue. And now we are on page 6 of the application, Project Documents. Here, we'll be uploading both required and optional documents. For each individual document, the file size cannot exceed 2 gigabytes. And for optional documents, we can upload up to 10 other optional documents to support our application. Here, under required documents, we can see that we need to upload income verification, IRS Form W-9, building owner participation agreement, and the signed application. If you chose to physically sign the application, you will have to upload it. However, since I electronically signed the application, we could see that it is already here under existing file name. So to upload files to the application, you can either drag and drop them from your device or browse your device by clicking Upload Files. For the purposes of today's demo, I'll just be uploading some test documents. When you upload a document, a modal window will appear where once you see this green circle with the check mark, that indicates that you have successfully uploaded the document, and you can click Done. And once you do that, you'll see the file name appear under existing file names. So I'll do that for the remaining 2 required documents. And after you upload your required documents, if you'd like to view them to make sure that you uploaded the correct document, you can do that simply by clicking on any of these file names. This will prompt a download to your device where you then can open up the document and just make sure that it is the correct one. Under optional documents, if you would like to provide any, you can select New Document, where then you can add your optional document. You'll give it a name, and then just like for the required documents, either drag and drop or click Upload Files to browse your device. You'll select the appropriate document. Once it's uploaded, click Done. And once you've uploaded all your required and optional documentation, you can click Continue. This will bring you to page 7 of the application, Submit Application. This is the end of the application process. So if you're ready, you can click Submit, or if you'd like to go back and review your application, to make sure that you've uploaded all the correct information. You can do that by using the navigation feature up at the top and clicking on the respective circle. But for now, I'll go back to Submit Application and I'll click Submit. Once you click Submit, the application window will reload where you'll see a thank you message displayed, and that will let you know that you've successfully submitted the application. There's also a message letting you know that you will be contacted shortly within 10 business days to schedule a scoping call, and that you may close the window. So we'll close the application window. We'll now see on our in-progress applications that we no longer can resume the application since it's submitted. So we'll go find that application in My Projects. When that page loads, we'll see our project name listed at the top with our application number and the status showing that it's been successfully submitted. To view the project information, we could just click on the project name, where we'll be able to see project details, as well as if we click on project sites, that will let us know if the project site is in a climate hazardous zone on this page. And like we said earlier, we'll be covering managing deliverables and invoices in a future webinar, so please be on the lookout for that. And you can click on project documents to view your submitted documents. So with that, one last thing, as well as managed deliverables and invoices will be available closer to launch, so please be on the lookout for that. And with that, that is the end of the demo, so if there are any questions, we can answer them now, and if not, then we could move on to the next presenter.
Thanks, Colin. I'm not seeing any messages in the Slido. Feel free to use that feature if you all have any questions, or if you want to use the raise hand feature to ask any questions. But Colin will be around for the duration of the webinar if you have additional questions. And now we will pass it over to the TRC folks, to Sarah, to give us an overview of the EAST tool.
Perfect. Thanks, Michelle. For the overview, I think we're going to get back into the slides whenever they're available. Perfect. Great. So thank you again. My name is Sarah Fletcher, and I'm going to be going through an overview of the EAST and its role in the program. I'm then going to pass it over to John Eyre to do a brief walkthrough of the tool, specifically for multifamily aspects. For those of you on the December stakeholder webinar, some of this high-level information is going to sound familiar. That December webinar, which also included a more detailed demo of the EAST, will be made available for those who missed it. So the EAST, or the Energy Assessment and Scoping Tool, is a multi-tabbed macro-enabled Excel workbook that captures energy savings for projects and acts as a scoping, review, and reporting tool. The EAST is applicable to all pathways. One EAST is required for every project. The EAST will capture multiple buildings. Again, we'll get a little bit of a look at that in a second. And the EAST may cover multiple assessments. The EAST acts as the central hub of information through the life of the project. As the EAST is completed, logic is included to prompt the user for next necessary information via hide showing of tabs and sections and color coding of cells to facilitate comprehensive completion. The EAST collects key information determining project and measure eligibility, MPS, or the minimum performance standard compliance, and includes some quality assurance and quality control to support accurate and comprehensive project submissions. The East will house information for all site upgrades and all pathways. So this includes that the East calculates gross verified site energy savings per the New York State Technical Resource Manual, or NYSTRM, for prescriptive and weatherization upgrades when those upgrades are not using modeling software. And the tool aggregates modeling results from Compass or other simulation software for projects pursuing electrification and/or deep retrofit upgrades, or have modeled weatherization and prescriptive upgrades. The tool will also capture every resilience upgrade as well. The tool is a successor to the Save It and similar in outline and process to the Save It and other predecessor tools used in other NYSERDA multifamily programs. And similar to these tools, the East will be made available for download on the program website upon program launch, along with a detailed user guide that will be available with a step-by-step guide for completion of the East. And now on the next slide, we'll look at how the East exactly comes into play within the lifetime of the projects. So in this graphic, the East is highlighted in the gray with blue circle box, just right of center. So within the lifetime of the program or the project, the participation and contractor engagement has already taken place. The common application has already been submitted and approved, and a site assessment has already occurred, and models have been created using PSD's Clarity Compass or other modeling software. At that stage, now the project is ready for the East, which again is available for download on the program website. Project level details shall be entered, and then that built-in logic will then prompt the user for subsequent required information. As we'll see shortly on John Ayer's slides, or John Ayer's demo, there's a button for pulling in building level information from the common application, and a button to pull in PSD export report if Clarity Compass was used. If any other non-modeled upgrades were included in the scope, they shall be entered into the East, and any existing condition information required will also be entered if prompted. Resilience improvements will also be noted in slides if indicated that resilience is included in the project. And then by aggregating this information between the upgrades, project, and building site information, the prescriptive weatherization, electrification, and/or deep retrofit upgrades, and resiliency enhancements, this is how the tool acts as central hub for the AmpUp project workflow. But once everything is completed, the QA/QC checks are passed, an East export is prepared for Salesforce, so that will be exported and uploaded back into Salesforce, and the project is ready for stage 1 approval, which will be followed by, as it says in the slide, notice to proceed, construction, and payment. All right, now that gives an overview of the East and the East in placement of the lifetime of the project, and we're going to I'm going to hand it over to John Ayer for a quick look at the multiple buildings aspects of the East.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, so today will be, good morning, everyone. My name is John College. I will be demoing the tool. The primary purpose of this demo today is to go over the addition of multiple buildings. And so for that reason, it may be a bit brief and we may not go through everything. The general structure and layout and function of the tool was already covered in the December demo. And if you are unable to attend the December meeting, a recording of the session will be made available on the program website shortly. And and as a precursor, this tool is still subject to change before launch. We don't anticipate any major changes, but just something to keep in mind. And I would suggest that if you notice anything that can use improvement or any changes you would like to see, please note them down and provide it as feedback. And more information on providing the feedback and receiving a copy of the tool for testing will be provided after the demonstration. And I will have 2 copies, just so everyone's aware. I will have 2 copies of the tool open. One is blank, so that we can see what the tool will start out as, and then the other one will be mostly filled out so that we can quickly progress through the demonstration. Starting in the general project information, please ensure that all relevant fields are completed and accurate. Selections on this tab will have downstream impacts, such as hiding or unhiding tabs or columns, and conditional formatting and data validation. So for example, resilience measure inputs and other tabs will be hidden or unhidden depending on selections here. So as you can see, right now we don't have many tabs to enter information in, but as we select information, the tabs will begin to unhide themselves. And then, so just as an example, let me provide, this is an example of what it may look like once it's mostly filled out. And moving on to the buildings tab, this is where we would import the Salesforce information. And prior to starting this East tool, you should have received a Salesforce export either through email or by generating it from the Salesforce portal upon completion of the previous general application. And if you need assistance on that, please contact the program support. And one other thing I'll mention as we are going through, please complete the tabs in the order that they come up, because again, there will be some data that is carried down and some conditional formatting and other perks that are important as you go through them. I would also recommend that all relevant files are in the same folder just for the ease of importing and for organization. So when we click the import Salesforce building data up here, we will be prompted to select the file, and that will populate certain fields. Other fields will need to be manually entered, and though the ones that are required will be highlighted in orange as we see here. And just as an example, again, this is what it may look like once you have filled it out. We would still recommend that you go through it and review to make sure that everything looks accurate. Some of the tabs on here may hide or unhide depending on selections on the previous tab, so it may look slightly different than what you're seeing here today. And so just as an example, so as we see, there are some fields that I haven't filled out yet, and so we can select some options just so that we're sure that everything's filled out, and we continue to look at, we see these parts should be filled in from the import. And here we have some more information that we can just fill in. One thing to note is that if you need to re-import for some reason, either the number of buildings or some information was incorrect, it will erase any data that was manually filled in. So we'd recommend creating a copy or starting a new tool. And that way you will have this information for reference and you can quickly and easily fill it in. And then we can move on to the measured calculations tab. And here, this will only populate if you've selected yes for this option here. Will the project include measures that will utilize prescriptive TRM calculations? And so just as an example, if we fill out some, for example, refrigerator and efficient flow shower heads, again, all information needs to be filled out all cells that are highlighted orange needs to be filled out, and everything should be as accurate as possible. So as of now, if we go to the measure summary, just to skip ahead a little, there is nothing here because we haven't filled out all the information. But once we fill everything out, we should now be seeing measures start to populate. And the measures will populate here depending on the order they are in the tabs, not in the order that you filled them out. So if you go back and you edit things and you add more, don't expect it to be at the bottom, expect it to be where it is relative to other measures. And here we have the new building selection. So if multiple buildings are present and each building has the same measure, you will need to add the same measure again. So everything will need to be repopulated and entered. If it's the same information, then it's the same information, but this also allows you to have differences between buildings within the same project. Some measures will have eligibility checks. So in this instance, for example, the installed refrigerator and the existing refrigerator are not within the allowable tolerance. So this model would not be accepted. We would need something that is closer in size to the existing refrigerator, for example. And similarly, so here with the shower heads, for example, in this situation, the number of shower heads that are being installed does not meet the eligibility criteria. And we're trying to implement these where we can, but we're only human. So don't rely on these. Please please make sure that everything is accurate. And we can check the measure summary and see that it's populating. And the other are similar. So here, if we move on to the modeled measures, again, as you saw, most of the information in this one is filled out. And as you can see in the other one, that modeled measures tab is not populated because we haven't selected the option for that. So if we select for that, then we can see this is how the tab would start out. We have it filled out most of the way, but because some critical information is missing, it's not included in the measure summary. And as we fill it out, again, it populates. So again, this is just a heads up that if you partially filled out measures, don't expect to see them in the measure summary. But I would also like to show you how to import from the Clarity Compass information. So for that, of course, you would need to select the appropriate option here for modeling software, and then that will unhide the tabs, and then we can import the data. And again, we have all of our files in the same folder. And so currently, it will give you a prompt on top for which building address, for which building the import is for. So we will do one building at a time. So once I've selected the correct file, I click OK. It imports that, and then the prompt comes back up, and we can select the next ones. And this will do it. This will be repeated, and then at the end you will get like a completion notification. In order to do this, you need to have filled out or imported the building information first. And the loop that was just ran, where it keeps asking you for the buildings, will run for however many buildings you have in the buildings tab. So because we have 3 buildings in that tab, we were able to select 3 files and import their information. And again, you can go through and confirm that all the information is accurate. On the savings tab, we have in column B and column A the addresses so that it can easily be tested. So column A shows the address, and column B shows which file was selected. And just to show the resilience tab, again, right now it is shown as being hashed out like this because the project is considered not eligible for flood proofing. Once you have appropriate measures in place, then you will be able to enter information and proceed with that. And again, for some of them, you may receive a kind of message that says that the building may not be eligible. So for flood proofing, as an example, some buildings may be eligible and others may not. And that is why it's critical to enter all the information correctly and accurately in the buildings tab earlier. And just as I mentioned, we mentioned the concern with re-importing the buildings information, that the buildings information here, that it would erase information. Fortunately, the PSD tabs do not have that concern. So if there are any mistakes, you can re-import without any concerns. And as we've been seeing in the measure summary, this tab aggregates all the measures that are included in the scope and divides it by the building, so you can see them here, which buildings have which measures. And there are some additional inputs. Again, all orange cells should be filled out, and these should be completed once all the measures are entered and accurate. I believe that concludes our demo. Again, the main aspect was the addition of individual buildings per project. And so we'll go back to the slide presentation and pass it back to Sarah.
Thanks, Jenner. I'm just going to wrap up on next steps. Which I think is on the next slide. Yep, perfect. So as Jenner mentioned, a draft of the East will be distributed to the attendees on this call and to others by request by the end of today. All feedback is requested to be submitted by close of business on Friday, February 6th, and all comments should be submitted to Jackie Albanese at jackie.albanese@nyserda.ny.gov, which will also be the email for Jackie will also be made available with the distribution. Program launch is expected early March. And as mentioned earlier, a final East will be made available on the program website for launch, along with a in-depth detailed user guide to help with the comprehensive step-by-step guide for completion of the East. And now that wraps up the East demo, walkthrough, and communication, and I'll pass it back to Phil for closing remarks.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, everybody who presented today. You did a great job, and we've actually finished pretty significantly ahead of schedule, which will be great for everybody. It leaves us plenty of time to answer questions, as well as possibly get out of here a little bit earlier than the full scheduled time. So what I will start with doing is, please remember you can raise your hand at any time if you'd like to verbally ask a question, and I can pass it over to the correct team members. And I see we've had somebody actually take advantage of that right away. So Michelle, could you please unmute Ariel, and we'll have Ariel's question. We'll pass it to the appropriate team member. Oh, there we go. Ariel, you should have
Hi,
received a request.
everyone.
Perfect.
Hi, Phil. How's it going?
Good. How are
Just
you?
further, good. Just further clarification for the weatherization incentive rate on the table that we saw. am I understanding that we need to do all of the weatherization measures, including window replacement, to receive the 2,500, or just it can be done in different piecemeal, like roof first, air sealing after, in order to receive the 2,500 per dwelling unit incentive rate up to?
Great. Absolutely. Thank you, Ariel. I will pass that over to Pam Miller to answer that question. Pam?
Yeah, thanks. Great question. And I think we've received similar questions in the chat, so I'm glad that you've asked this one. So that incentive, so the incentive by measure category, we had the prescriptive, the weatherization, the electrification, and the deep retrofit. That is the cap incentive available to cover any and all of the measures that are listed on the measure list that the building wishes to or needs to install. So if you are doing, for instance, in weatherization, if you're doing roof only, if your roof insulation costs exceed the total incentive for weatherization, so the $2,500 per dwelling unit, then we would cap you at the $2,500 for the dwelling unit. If they exceed your either 70% or 85% incentive cap based on your building size, then you would be capped at that amount. If it does not exceed the $2,500 per dwelling unit, remaining funds may be available to implement additional measures. So for instance, if you wanted to do roof insulation, wall insulation, and window replacement, likely you would end up hitting a cap depending on your building size. And so the incentive would just be capped at whatever either 70 or 85% of the scope of work, or the $2,500 per dwelling unit, whichever would be reached first. Does that help to clarify?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. And I will say that I am looking at potentially including an example to answer this exact question in the program manual. So hopefully this will be addressed in the program manual as well. Thank you.
Yeah, that'll be useful to have the scenarios of individual
Yeah,
measures.
understood.
Practical. Very good.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I do see we have a few more people with their hands raised. I would like to also remind that you can use the Slido as well to ask questions, and I will respond to those in the order that we see questions come in there as well. With that in mind, Elodie, I'm going to send you a request to unmute and ask your question. You should be able to unmute now.
Hi. Could you clarify what is the position of the
Oh,
NREP program?
Elodie, we're getting a little bit of feedback on your end. Do you mind submitting the question via the chat and I will read it out loud?
Do you hear me?
That was better. Perfect. It was just getting a little bit of an echo before.
Hello?
Hey, can you hear us? We can hear you. We were just getting a bit of an echo before.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Could you clarify what is the position of the NREP program for downstate New York and Connecticut territory? Can we expect similar
Sorry, you skipped out the end. Can we expect similar?
changes and similar incentives in those areas as well?
So with regards to that, so the multifamily contractor network here at NYSERDA is related to specifically NYSERDA programs and serving those NYSERDA programs. The utilities will be running those programs in there, and I would recommend reaching out to your local utility provider to get more information on what incentives they will be offering in that market for the LMI programs, such as the continuation of the AME program.
So is there any involvement of NYSERDA in the Connect territories?
Brian, do you mind stepping in on that one a little bit?
Sure. Hi, this is Brian Cabezas on the multifamily team. We will still be offering our technical assistance statewide for LMI multifamily building owners. So that will still be an opportunity that if you need some, and we're working with our utility partners to see how they can leverage that technical assistance to feed into their, into the downstate AMIP program and that will really be, I think, the main connection, the main offering that we have in the downstate market. So that technical assistance piece. There will not be an end use incentive program from NYSERDA for the LMI multifamily market in downstate. It really will be just the AMIP program providing those services. Does that help clarify things?
Yes.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Let me go back to the chat here. I'm going to remute everybody. Okay, great. I saw that we had Jeff next with his hand raised. So Jeff, I'm going to send you an unmute request. You're good to go. Jeff, if you hit on mute, you should be able to ask your question.
Hello. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Thanks for the super helpful webinar. My question was related to the technical assistance at 100% cost share. Is that basically covering the same scope of work as what would have been under the concierge service? Like just trying to think if the concierge is the contractor performing kind of the implementation of the program, can you use that similarly if you're not going through the concierge service and the owner would be hiring a contractor to take them through it? Was that the intent there? Or
Yeah,
was it
great.
for
Let me pass that over to Pam Miller. Pam?
Yeah, so not entirely. The technical assistance incentive is intended to pay for the actual building assessment or audit, whichever is required by the program. So depending on what incentive category your project is pursuing, prescriptive, weatherization, electrification, deep retrofit, there are specific requirements that will be called out in the program manual when that is finalized, indicating what level audit or assessment that building will require. So the technical assistance incentive is intended to pay for that assessment / audit, as well as the preparation of the EAST tool.
Yeah, and Chris, do you mind jumping back to slide 16? I think that'll
Yeah.
help support Pam's point of what she's talking about here, and we can highlight it there. We'll give it 1 second here, and one more.
Yep.
There we go. Perfect. Go ahead, Pam. Now you can go over that a little bit more.
Right. So the primary service if you were a non-concierge, so for our contractor network that's on the call today, you would be providing costs for submitting the program application, doing that building assessment, doing the project scoping. So the building assessment and the project scoping is really kind of what is going to be covered by the technical assistance component. So the customer would still be paying for services for program application, project deliverables, and then construction oversight and project closeout. And then should the contractor want to offer additional services under the project planning competitive bid process, actually anything else that's on here is optional, or anything that's not included on here, that can still be provided as a service, but that cost would be those costs would be 100% responsibility of the participant to pay directly to the contractor.
Thank you. That was super helpful explanation
Great.
there.
Awesome. Great. Thank you very much. Chris, if you could jump back to the question slide. I'm going to remute everybody again. And I see before Rachel had a question come in here, which I will have you unmuted soon. We did have a question come in through this Slido as well that I would like to just answer. I was asked if we could share a link to the Clarity Compass training. I just wanted to reply to everybody and let everyone know that the trainings will be posted on the NYSERDA provider portal for the contractor network, the multifamily contractor network. When those do go live, you will find them there. Awesome. with that, I will pass it over to Rachel. Rachel, you should have received an unmute request and you can unmute.
Thanks, Bill. Two quick questions. First one is just clarifying the stacking and amp up, because Pam's example was about a phased project that would be happening over years. I just wanted to confirm that those incentives could also be stacked if, like, you were doing a weatherization plus electrification project all at once. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then my other question is around the umbrella agreement that's going to be coming out soon. Phil, I might have missed it. Did you mention when we should expect that?
We are working to have updates. Yes, we did mention that. Have this updated and into the market around the end of Q1, early Q2 time period.
Okay, great. And do you have an idea of what the turnaround time will be for contractors to respond to that?
It will be an open enrollment, so it will be remaining open. There's not going to be a shortened window for that. So you can apply as long as the set category is open. We will let people know. It'll be assessed probably initially on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, eventually moving probably more to a quarterly cadence later on as applications start slowing down.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great. All right. I do see another question in the chat. This is from Ariel. For proof of LMI, can affordable housing what can affordable housing provide a tool for meeting the criteria? So I think from what we're seeing here, this may be referencing something called the rent roll tool that we've used in the past. And Pam, do you think you might be able to talk a little more to that?
Yeah, sure. That is the tool that we've used historically in other multifamily programs, the rent row tool. We do plan on continuing to offer that spreadsheet as an available option for LMI documentation.
Awesome, Ariel. If that is correct how you assessed it, please just give us a quick hand raising down, and we will just give it another couple of. Okay, perfect. Great. I see the thanks.
Perfect.
Awesome. I do not see any other hands raised. I'll give it another minute or two if anybody else has any questions, as well as checking the Slido. But we really do appreciate everybody attending this session. Keep an eye out for an email coming for the close of business today with the East tool for people to test. Reminder that that is due with comments by February 6th, correct, Pam?
That is correct.
Awesome. And really thank you for attending these sessions. Remember to fill out the annual survey to give us feedback on these so we can continue to provide you with the most value that we can in these sessions. Thanks, everybody.